Hi, I'm Angelique Molina. I am with the film I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking. I was the co-director, co-producer, and co-writer of the film.
So, where did this story come from, and what made you want to tackle so many different things on the film?
So, with my co-director and writer and producer, Roma Kong and Kelly Kali, we all went to school together, and we all talked about working together. And once we graduated, it didn't get to that. We all got busy with work. And during the pandemic, Kelly called us both and said, let's just make something now. So it was really a last minute thing where Kelly just woke up and said, let's make a film. Let's do this together. And within 2 weeks, we were making a film. So we all lived in Los Angeles. Kelly and I grew up in Los Angeles, and there's a huge homelessness or houselessness issue over there, and it's always been something in our eyes every day, our whole lives. We've seen houselessness to an intense degree, and it's gotten extremely terrible more recently. So that was part of the inspiration for what subject we wanted to engage with, and it was also about showing the resilience of a mother and someone that was going through a hard time and having things happen to her back to back to back to back and still fighting for her kid, and just folks in general like ourselves who are not parents but are filmmakers, and sometimes it's feast or famine. It's a little bit of a roller coaster of just trying to make it, and regardless of being a filmmaker, there are people out there that are literally just trying to make it paycheck to paycheck, and we wanted to show that struggle and that resilience in the film.
So I'm curious, was Kelly always wanting to make this a project where she would be that involved in the character and the role?
As the actress?
Yeah.
So because we were in the middle of a pandemic, we decided that we would all act in it. I do not claim to be an actress. Kelly acted prior to this and wanted to have a role where we just, she acted in it as the lead. And so she decided to be the lead so that we could so she could continue acting and create her own opportunities. But then also we decided as a group, because we were very concerned about COVID, to limit our crew and our actors. So everybody that was the crew were the actors. So anybody that you see in front of the camera was also behind the camera at some point, including the DP, the AC, the director, the producer. Everybody was in front of the camera at some point because we wanted to limit our exposure to each other. My sister was in the movie because I live with her, and we were like, well, that's our same pod. So we had testing every week. So we did that because of COVID. Kind of made us do some things that we would have probably normally not done. Most of it took place outside. Her mode of transportation was skating, so because we didn't want to hop on buses or get into cars and be in small spaces. Being in the middle of a pandemic definitely influenced how we made the film.
As far as showing the film now that the pandemic is starting to lift, I'm curious, do you treat this as a film that you do say this was a film done in the pandemic and that's the strength of it, or do you hope that it extends past that? Because even knowing that what you've done, the film doesn't show the pandemic per se at all, which I love that you can take it out of that context. Was that important as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because it was July, and we got shut down in March. We didn't know what was going on still. We were still like, well, we want to make this film timeless still. And even though people were wearing masks, and it would definitely date us, and we knew that people would know like, oh, that's during the pandemic, but we didn't want to mention it all the time. And taking away the masks, taking away the pandemic, this story is a story that has happened before, will continue to happen, unfortunately, and we wanted to show that there are people struggling out there and kind of just dealt a bad hand, and we wanted to show their journey. So it's regardless of the pandemic, I think that a lot of people can relate to the fact that there's a lot of people working hard that are gig to gig, that are not given opportunities sometimes.
I'm curious, as far as a filmmaker dealing with the pandemic, how much more did you grow in the process? Because you were so you had to be so intricate on every step. Did it make this process even quicker and more impactful?
Definitely. We were definitely mindful of things that we didn't have to be mindful about before with COVID happening, and we took that into consideration on every level. We, again, with the size of our crew, our locations, people always talk about, like, with independent filmmaking, how you kind of just make with, do with what you have, and we didn't have a lot with that. We used our resources. Kelly is the daughter of a pastor, and she was able to, reach out to her community there, the church included, to get a lot of locations. We used my uncle's pool for one scene. We used my uncle's empty apartment unit for one scene. So we literally, all of our locations were free, and that's because of the community that supported us. So there are, normally you would go out and pay people, which is what we want to do. But at this point, when nobody had a job, we weren't making film in the traditional way. So we did have to adjust. And I think that this process did help us grow with that adjustment and just being like, okay, well, this is the issue. Let's move on and let's figure out something else. And that's how we did it.
I'm curious, was there any inspiration film-wise for the look of the film and the way it unfolds story-wise?
Totally. So we wanted it to be bright, even though the subject was not so bright, because it's a hot summer. I don't know if you're familiar with Pacoima. It's like in the valley outside of Los Angeles, and we worked through a heat wave, and God bless our crew because it was extremely hot, and we wanted that to be reflected in the images and how that looked, and that went down from what people were wearing, just how bright it was, and people sweating. We definitely wanted that to be a reflection, and as far as the story went, we wanted to show from Danny's perspective and to show like her struggle and be with her most of the time. So we did that.
Being able to get into a festival like Bentonville, what does that mean not only as a young filmmaker, but as a woman filmmaker, and the importance of this festival for not just highlighting women filmmakers, but women in all levels of the filmmaking process, because your team is that diverse.
Absolutely. I would say most of our heads of departments are women and women of color for the most part, and we, it means everything to us. We talk about, like, someone has asked that before about, being at Bentonville and having that platform is absolutely important to us because it gives us an opportunity to show that, we can do it. This is us. These are our stories that we want to tell. So being in Bentonville means everything to us, and it's important that we did have a diverse crew. But we talk about this, that it was sort of effortless because reaching out to our friends, like, those were our friends. Those are the people that were supporting us and supporting this story. Happened to be a lot of women, happened to be a lot of women of color, and happened to be a lot of supportive men that we collaborated with. So it was effortless in being able to find diversity behind the camera and in front of the camera, and that's why, being in Bentonville, it's great to show that we can do this and to have a platform to be able to do it.
I'm not sure if people know just how impactful the homeless situation is, the houseless situation. Being a part of a film that is showcasing that, what do you hope audiences gain from it? And also for people who are in that struggle, do you feel that this is at least a voice for them?
I never claim to be a voice for anybody because I think that everybody has a voice, whether they're whispering or they're screaming to the mountaintop. Everybody has a voice, and I think that it's our job as society to give people a platform and to allow them to speak their stories. And I think that maybe we were a tool, but we're definitely not the voice for anybody. But sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Well, I'm just curious, as far as reaching out to the audience, do you hope people get the message but also the story? Totally.
So for the message that I feel like we want people to get is to have empathy towards people, and understand that everybody deserves dignity, and that we're not better than the person that might be in a situation that we're not in. A lot of people are a paycheck away from being in that situation, or a healthcare issue away from being in that situation, and they may or may not look like you, they may or may not dress like you, they may or may not, they're human, and that everybody deserves dignity. regardless of their situation. So I feel like I want people to get that from this film. But again, I don't claim to be the voice of everybody in this situation, but everybody should have the platform and be able to speak their minds and tell their stories.
Well, Angelique, thank you for diving into this subject and battling COVID to do this.
Totally.
It was a wonderful film and
Thank
something
you.
that did touch me. I hope more people get to see it. So thank you for coming to Bentonville
Thank you
as well.
so much. I'm happy to be here. It's been exciting.
Awesome.
Thank you.